Welcome to the Senior Techie Podcast. Um, Imagine buying a brand new, top-of-the-line computer. You bring it home, turn it on, and right away you realize the screen is completely locked onto a microscopic font.
Oh, and the volume is just blaring at maximum capacity.
Exactly, just blaring. You wouldn't just accept that, right? You wouldn't sit there squinting and covering your ears for a $1,000 piece of hardware.
No, of course not. You'd go straight into the settings and change them.
Right. Yet, every single day, millions of highly capable seniors accept these really rigid, uncomfortable factory default settings for something vastly more important. I mean, their own healthcare and daily support.
Yeah, it really is a profound contradiction. I mean, the listeners joining us today have navigated incredible complexity over the course of their lives.
Absolutely.
If you are 60, 70, or 80 years old, you've managed careers, negotiated mortgages, raised families. You've made thousands of high-stakes, nuanced decisions. You are deeply capable.
Yeah, you've literally run the show.
Exactly. But then the moment you cross the threshold of a medical facility or the moment a home caregiver walks through your front door, there is this subtle unspoken pressure to surrender all that agency.
It is entirely jarring. And that's why we are exploring excerpts from a truly vital source today. It's a text called Taking the Wheel, the Senior Advocate's Guide to Care.
Such an important resource.
It really is. And the mission of our discussion today is to help you approach the massive, sometimes intimidating system of senior care exactly how the Senior Techie approaches any new piece of technology.
Meaning as a tool.
Exactly, as a tool.
Yeah.
We want you to view your care plan as an operating system. It's something you can master, customize, and control so that it actually serves your life.
I love that framing.
Okay, let's unpack this by looking at what our source identifies as the default setting for most patients. Let's set the scene. Picture sitting on that crinkly paper on an exam table.
Wearing one of those drafty hospital gowns.
Right. Or maybe you're sitting across your own kitchen table from a brand new home health aide, and decisions are being made rapidly about your day, your medications, your morning routine.
But nobody actually paused to ask what your preference is. You're just being told how it's going to be.
Yes. And the source material gives that exact disempowering feeling a name.
They do, yeah. They call it being managed. And what we really need to recognize is that being managed is not a medical necessity. It is simply a systemic habit of the industry.
Right. It's just how they operate by default.
Exactly. So the most vital shift you can make right now is moving your mindset from being a passive patient waiting for instructions to becoming an informed consumer who has clear expectations.
Because you know the intricacies of yourself better than anyone holding a clipboard ever could.
Precisely. Setting the terms actually allows your caregiver to do a much better job.
Wait, I have to push back here on behalf of our listeners. I mean, it is very easy for us to sit behind microphones and say, oh, just set the terms or be an informed consumer.
Sure, it sounds easy in theory.
Right. But if I'm sitting in that sterile room and a doctor with 3 degrees is rushing through my chart and talking a mile a minute, speaking up feels incredibly intimidating.
Oh, totally.
How do we overcome that natural intimidation factor without feeling like we are being, a difficult patient?
Well, that is the exact hurdle the source material addresses.
Yeah.
The key is understanding that setting the terms doesn't make you difficult. It makes you a collaborator.
A collaborator, I like that.
Yeah. When you establish your preferences, you're actually giving your caregiver or your physician the critical data they need. We have to strip away the illusion that the medical professional knows everything about your specific daily reality.
Right. They know the medicine, but you know the patient.
Exactly. But to change those settings, to customize your care, we first need to understand a piece of industry jargon that explains how good care is actually supposed to function behind the scenes.
Okay, right. And in the text, there's this phrase pulled straight out of business schools. Servant leadership.
Yes, servant leadership.
Now, before we get into the process of how that works in healthcare, let's demystify that jargon with a physical, real-world tech analogy.
Let's hear it.
Think of servant leadership like a smart thermostat in your house. A bad, outdated thermostat just blasts heat based on a rigid, factory-programmed schedule.
Right. It turns on at 6 in the morning, whether you're shivering in bed or sweating in the kitchen.
Exactly. It doesn't care. But a smart thermostat, a servant leader thermostat, actually learns your specific preferences over time. It adjusts to your routine, and it serves your comfort rather than forcing you to adapt to its rigid programming.
That is a brilliant illustration of what the source means. If we strip away the corporate buzzwords, Servant leadership in senior care means that a good caregiver's very first mandate is to serve your specific needs.
Serve the user, essentially.
Right. They are not there to efficiently move you through their daily schedule like you're a product on a conveyor belt. It manifests in very concrete ways.
Like what? What are some examples from the text?
Well, it's a doctor who actually sits down, makes eye contact, and listens to your symptoms before ever reaching for the prescription pad.
Oh, wow, what a concept.
I know, right? Or it's a home health aide who asks, how do you prefer your mornings to flow? Before they start rearranging your furniture or demanding you eat breakfast at a specific hour.
I understand the concept, but let's be totally honest with each other. If this is what good care looks like, why does it feel so rare?
That's the big question.
Is it just bad apples in the healthcare industry, or is there a bigger mechanical issue at play here?
There is absolutely a mechanical glitch in the system, and understanding why it happens is crucial so you don't take it personally.
Okay.
It's rarely a lack of respect or empathy from individual frontline workers. The reality is that most care organizations are built heavily from the top down.
So it's a structural problem.
Completely. The administrators at the top build a highly efficient, rigid schedule to maximize profit or manage understaffing. The frontline workers, the aides, the nurses, they often don't feel empowered to put you first because they're terrified of falling behind on management's timeline.
Wow, so they're just as trapped by the default setting.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that asking them to slow down and listen to you isn't making some radical, impossible demand. It's just asking for basic human respect.
Right.
Which is exactly why you have to be the one to speak up and disrupt that top-down pressure. You have to break the circuit.
And breaking the circuit doesn't mean you have to bang your fist on the table or yell. You don't need to be confrontational at all. You just need to be clear.
Exactly. Clarity is everything.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The source material provides a list of specific scripts you can use. I like to think of these as voice commands.
Oh, I like that. Voice commands.
Yeah. Just like you would program a smart speaker to adjust your environment, you can use these exact phrases to reprogram your care experience. The text outlines 7 of these, and I think we should go through them.
Let's do it.
Okay. The first command is about setting expectations early. You say, please walk me through my options before recommending one.
Yes, and the psychology behind this one is about maintaining your position as the decision maker. You're asking to see the entire menu before someone else places an order for your life.
Because providers often just mentally filter out options they assume you won't want, right?
Exactly. Or options that take too much time to explain. This command forces them to lay all the cards on the table.
That makes total sense. Okay, the second voice command is about your daily life. I'd like my daily routine respected as much as possible.
This one is vital for home health aides or assisted living environments. Your sleep schedules, your meal preferences, whether you prefer to shower at night instead of in the morning.
Those aren't trivial details at all.
Not at all. They are the scaffolding of your quality of life. The system naturally wants to standardize everything to make staffing easier, but you are stating up front that your personal rhythm matters.
Right. Okay, moving to the third command. I want to be part of decisions about my care, not just informed after the fact.
That is a boundary setter right there.
But let me challenge this. If you say this to a busy care coordinator, do they actually change their workflow, or do they just nod and ignore you?
That is why the source emphasizes that this command requires repetition. You must state it early, state it directly, and reiterate it whenever you feel the system trying to bypass you.
So you have to enforce it.
Yes, if a meeting is happening about your health, you belong in the room. This phrase establishes a boundary that they cannot claim ignorance of later.
Good point. All right, command number 4 is like an error code that forces a reboot. You simply ask, can you explain that in plain language?
I love that one. Medical jargon is an occupational shorthand, but it is not your problem to decode.
Right. It's not on you to learn their language.
Yeah. No, it is their fundamental job to translate their expertise into a language you can understand and act upon. You must ask this until the concept makes complete intuitive sense to you.
Never let them proceed while you're still deciphering their vocabulary.
Exactly.
Okay, number 5 deals with pacing. I'd like a few minutes to think before we decide. I love the mechanics of that phrase. Why is that specific wording so effective?
Because it acts as a manual override. Medical professionals get caught in a momentum of diagnosis to treatment. When you ask for a few minutes to think, it physically halts that momentum.
And a good provider will honor that.
Any ethical provider will honor this pause without hesitation. If someone is rushing you to make a medical decision after you've explicitly asked for time to process, they are waving a massive red flag.
That is such a crucial warning sign. Okay, command number 6 is about operational support. You ask, who do I contact if I have a concern about my care?
Getting that specific name and direct phone number of a supervisor before you need it is crucial.
Yeah, you don't want to be digging around for it later.
Right. When you're upset or when a protocol has broken down, that is the absolute worst time to be hunting through a website or a brochure for contact information. You want that direct line secured on day one.
Have the tech support number handy. And the final command, number 7, is for when you're evaluating a facility. What does a typical day look like here, and how much input do residents have?
Essential for evaluating whether an assisted living community actually practices servant leadership or if they just run a rigid schedule.
I highly recommend treating these 7 phrases like essential voice commands. Write them down on a piece of paper, put them in the Notes app on your phone, post them visibly on your fridge.
Share them with your care team, too.
Yes. So these voice commands work wonderfully if you're trying to fix a buggy operating system, your current care team. But what if the hardware itself is completely broken?
Oh, and it's time to replace the whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
How do you know when it's time to replace your provider entirely? And how do you avoid buying a lemon when you shop for a new one?
Well, that requires a completely different tool set. Whether you are shopping for a new home care agency, vetting a new assisted living community, or transitioning to a new specialist practice, you need a proactive buyer's guide.
Okay, what does the source suggest?
The source material outlines 5 specific vetting questions designed to stress test an organization before you ever sign a contract.
I love the idea of stress testing. Let's explore these questions. What's the first one?
The first question is the ultimate stress test. You ask, how do you handle it when a client disagrees with your recommendation?
Oh, wow. How does that question actually trap a bad agency? What's the mechanism there?
It creates cognitive friction. A poorly run agency or one that is entirely focused on sales will answer far too quickly. They will offer a generic PR-approved platitude like, oh, that never happens, we just do whatever you want.
Which is obviously a lie.
It's a systemic lie and a massive red flag. Disagreements always happen in healthcare. A well-run organization will pause and they will explain their exact step-by-step escalation matrix for resolving conflicts.
So they actually have a system for disagreement rather than just pretending it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And the second question follows the same logic. You ask, can you give me an example of how you've adjusted care to fit someone's personal preferences?
You want to hear an actual story there, right?
Yes, you are looking for a highly specific narrative, not a vague assurance. Then the third question is, what happens when a resident or patient feels their concerns aren't being heard?
These are really direct.
They are. The fourth question is, how much input do clients have in their own care plans? And finally, question 5, what's your process when a family member wants to escalate a concern?
I can imagine some administrators getting pretty defensive hearing these.
Oh, sure. But if they get defensive, you just saved yourself months of misery because you now know they operate on ego rather than protocols. Confident, transparent organizations will actually be genuinely thrilled by these questions. They invest heavily in these protocols, and they rarely get asked about them. If we connect this to the bigger picture, asking these slightly uncomfortable questions up front is the ultimate preventative maintenance.
You're doing the hard, awkward work of vetting the system before your health depends on it.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean when the inevitable happens?
Yeah.
Let's be realistic here. Even with the most rigorous vetting process, and even if you use all the right voice commands, systems still break down.
They always do, eventually.
Right. You might suddenly hit a frustrating roadblock with your daily caregiver. How do we troubleshoot that without causing chaos?
This is where the source provides a critical reality check about where you direct your energy. Remember earlier when we discussed the top-down management glitch?
Yeah, how the aides are trapped by the schedule.
Right. The aide standing in your kitchen might genuinely want to honor your preference and let you sleep in for an extra hour. They might agree with you completely, but their agency has them tracked on a GPS application running on a tight, unforgiving schedule.
So yelling at them isn't going to fix anything.
Exactly. Directing your frustration at that frontline worker is not only unfair, it is entirely ineffective. They simply do not possess the administrative clearance to change the policy.
It's exactly like yelling at the cashier at the grocery store because the price of milk went up.
Exactly.
The cashier doesn't set the corporate pricing algorithm.
Yes.
So what is the proper troubleshooting protocol? How do we successfully escalate the ticket?
If the frontline worker cannot resolve the issue, You immediately go up one level in the hierarchy. You pull out that contact information you gathered on day one, and you reach out to the supervisor or the care coordinator by name.
Okay, that makes sense.
And here is the single most important step in the escalation process. You must put your concern in writing.
Wait, why does it have to be in writing? Does an email really hold more weight than a phone call?
It fundamentally changes the nature of the interaction. Organizations respond entirely differently to documented requests than they do to passing hallway conversations.
Ah, because of the paper trail.
Yes, even a brief 3-sentence email creates a time-stamped paper trail. That transitions your concern from a casual complaint into an administrative liability that requires a formal response and resolution.
Now, if you are living in a licensed senior living community, the text introduces another vital piece of industry jargon that acts as your ultimate troubleshooting tool.
The ombudsman.
Yes, the ombudsman. And before we define the exact mechanics of their role, think of an ombudsman like an independent consumer protection watchdog or a third-party tech auditor.
That's a great analogy.
When an internal system fails, you don't trust the system to investigate itself, right? They will just protect their own bottom line. You bring in an independent auditor whose sole mandate is to advocate for the user, to advocate for you.
That is exactly how the program functions. The Ombudsman is part of a Free State program dedicated entirely to long-term care advocacy. They are highly trained problem solvers who represent the residents, not the management of the facility.
So they don't work for the corporation.
They do not draw a paycheck from the corporation. If your internal escalation emails are being ignored, or if you face retaliation, the Ombudsman is your mechanism for external accountability.
That is incredibly empowering to know.
It really is. But the golden rule of tech support applies here as well. Look up your local long-term care ombudsman program online right now. Save their number in your phone before you are in a crisis and actually need them.
Have the tool ready before the pipe bursts.
Yes, exactly.
I think that brings us beautifully to the core philosophy of everything we have unpacked today. The bottom line of this source material is profoundly encouraging.
It really is.
You do not have to be a demanding, aggressive, or difficult person to receive excellent care. You just have to be incredibly, persistently clear.
Clear and consistent.
Yes. The text points out a fascinating truth. The seniors who ultimately receive the very best care aren't the loudest. They are simply the ones who show up knowing exactly what they want, and they possess the specific vocabulary to clearly articulate it to the system.
Because your age, whether you're 65 or 95, is absolutely not a reason to hand over the wheel to a stranger with a clipboard.
Never.
Yeah.
Your decades of life experience are your greatest asset. You know exactly who you are, what your body needs, and how you expect to be treated.
You have comprehensively earned the right to have expectations and the right to see those expectations met.
Absolutely. And just like mastering the interface of a new tablet or learning the hidden features of a new smartphone app, mastering your own care plan is simply a learned skill.
It's entirely doable.
It involves learning the right voice commands, knowing where the hidden settings are, and knowing exactly who to call for tech support when the system glitches. It is entirely within your capabilities. The senior techie fundamentally believes that you have the life experience to run this perfectly, and you should never let any administrative system make you feel otherwise.
This raises an important question. How might your entire relationship with your medical and care team transform if you started viewing them as specialized consultants you've hired for a project, rather than authority figures grading your health? What is one specific thing you wish your current caregiver or doctor understood about how you uniquely like to be treated?
This podcast was brought to you by The Senior Techie. It's available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. If you'd like to receive their free newsletters, you can subscribe at subscribe.theseniortechie.com.